Preseason training for F1 drivers can include anything from simple bike rides to full-on cardio sessions. Some drivers like to spend the break engaging in various hobbies outside F1, while others like to stay focused and prepare for the next season the best way they can. In this video, we will be looking at how F1 drivers are training for the 2022 season and the different ways in which drivers keep fit and train during the preseason. So without further ado, let's begin. The start of winter testing in Barcelona ahead of the 2022 Formula One season is almost here. As the winter break comes to an end, many F1 drivers have already begun their respective training programs, and the timing appears to be ideal, as most of them are expected to report to their team's headquarters by the first week of February to complete simulation work and other preseason briefings. As a result, many drivers, including Charles Leclerc and Valtteri Bottas, took to social media to update their ongoing training programs in preparation for the upcoming season. Leclerc spent his time trekking and skiing in Italy's Dolomites. He also wrote, "Last days of training here before getting back to Maranello next week to prepare for the 2022 season." Meanwhile, Bottas, who is preparing to join Alfa Romeo, has also updated his training routine. Unlike Leclerc, the Finnish racer spent his training time with his girlfriend Tiffany Cromwell and a professional cycling team, WMN Cycling. Max Verstappen, the 2021 hero, has been busy training for the 2022 season from his home in Monaco. Lando Norris and Lance Stroll have been out on the golf course a lot lately. The McLaren driver, in particular, recently completed his first ever golf tournament. Several other drivers, including the Williams duo, took to Instagram to update about their presence at the team headquarters. Alex Albon, who is returning to Formula One after a one-year hold, shared a photo of himself inside the headquarters. "Making HQ home," at Williams Racing, wrote the Thai Briton. Meanwhile, his Canadian teammate, Nicholas Latifi, shared a similar photo with the caption, "Good to be back, let's get to work." Pierre Gasly shared a photo of himself working out in a Miami Dolphins t-shirt. In contrast, it appears that a few drivers, including Daniel Ricciardo and Mick Schumacher, are yet to return from their vacations. Why is it important for drivers to stay in shape? Formula One drivers need to be in peak physical condition to compete in a Grand Prix, with every aspect of their training and diet designed to help them go faster on race day. While the driving may look effortless on television, drivers are subjected to punishing forces over the course of a race that most ordinary people would find intolerable after only a few seconds. When you consider that they do this lap after lap and that most races last for about an hour and a half, it's easy to understand why modern F1 drivers must train like elite athletes. It hasn't always been this way. In F1's early years and even during the 1980s, the benefits of staying fit were widely known, though the meticulous approach to training and conditioning is a more recent phenomenon pioneered by the likes of Ayrton Senna and later Michael Schumacher. Every time a driver gets behind the wheel, they subject themselves to enormous forces, with straight-line acceleration and deceleration among the most brutal of any form of motorsport. From a standing start, the cars can pull around 2G, and braking at the end of straights can result in as much as 6G in some cases. Around 1G of this comes from simply lifting off the throttle, and the rest is gained by applying around 160 kilograms of force to the brake pedal. Cornering forces are equally brutal, with some tracks causing drivers to feel 6 times their own body weight for brief periods and 4 to 5G in sustained turns. Lewis Hamilton posted 4.9G, 5.6G, and 5.2G through turns 6, 7, and 8 in practice at Mugello for the Tuscan Grand Prix in 2020, while teammate Valtteri Bottas peaked at 5.2G through the famous Parabolica turn at Monza in qualifying for the Italian Grand Prix that same season. To withstand these forces, drivers must have absolute muscle strength in their necks, cores, and legs, as well as the stamina to perform the first lap of a race until the last. They also need good cardiovascular fitness because heart rates can average more than 170 beats per minute during a race, which is significantly higher than a healthy adult would normally experience while running. But it's not just a race to see who can be the strongest. Until recently, drivers had to be as light as possible in order to keep the weight of their car as low as possible to achieve the maximum speed possible on the track. This meant that many of them, particularly taller drivers, had to reduce their calorie intake drastically, which often resulted in illness and a lack of sleep. For 2019, a minimum 80 kilogram threshold for a driver and their seat was introduced, which means that anyone falling short of this would need to add ballast to their vehicles to compensate. This has eased some drivers' stress and allowed them to maintain healthier weights and muscle mass. Even so, the physical demands placed on F1 drivers' bodies during a race are extreme. Hamilton has admitted that he can lose up to 4 kilograms during hotter races, as humidity at places like Singapore depletes drivers' fluids. Furthermore, he claimed to have lost 4 kilograms after contracting coronavirus, which caused him to miss the Sakir Grand Prix in 2020. Drivers must also be physically fit in order to withstand impact forces in the event of a collision, with fitness playing a significant role in surviving accidents. For instance, the physical impact peaked at 53G when Romain Grosjean crashed out of the Bahrain Grand Prix in 2020. Robert Kubica's hard-stopping accident at the 2007 Canadian Grand Prix peaked at 75G at the moment of impact. When it comes to fitness routines, every driver is different, though the majority of them revolve around gym work. This allows them to exercise different muscle groups in each session, ensuring that they retain the core strength required to complete a full race distance, during which they may use the brakes up to 1,200 times. Most drivers hire personal trainers to manage their training and recovery throughout the year, and the relationship is critical to success on the track. Angela Cullen, Hamilton's physio since 2016, is the most recognizable of all trainers. She is frequently seen by his side in the garage and around the paddock. Cullen was the only consistent presence in Hamilton's bubble during the COVID-19 hit 2020 season, demonstrating her importance to his preparation. How do drivers from other series compare? There are few, if any, motorsports series in the world that will let you race with no real training. Different types of racing necessitate different fitness levels, though the need to be as light as possible to travel as quickly as possible is universal. Drivers in the World Endurance Championship must sometimes endure quadruple stints that can last for several hours at a time, which means their bodies must be adequately prepared to limit fatigue behind the wheel. Although the G-forces aren't as high as in F1, stamina is required to make the same precise inputs on the throttle, brakes, and steering wheel lap after lap, hour after hour. It's no surprise that so many mistakes at events like the 24 Hours of Le Mans can be attributed to exhaustion. WEC drivers must also be able to deal with extreme heat. At one point during the 2016 Circuit of the Americas, track temperatures reached an unbearable 44 degrees Celsius. Bike-Holy's driver, Oli Webb, claimed to have lost 7 kilos during the race. Fortunately, he and several others were able to get through it thanks to heat chamber training, while others were so exhausted that they collapsed in the paddock. That brings us to the end of today's video. If you liked the video, please leave a like and a comment below. Also, if you're new to this channel, subscribe and click the notification bell to get notified when we upload more content.